Hello there, and welcome, fans, to the Rebel Roost. I am your co-host, Colin, and I am joined by...
Spencer, fellow co-host.
Today, we start an amazing journey, a podcast, and we are...
The Rebel Roost.
Duh. But we are also...
We are also just two fans of Star Wars who just wanted to talk about it, and...
It's definitely not a therapy session for us.
No, with all the controversy surrounding Star Wars, the good and the bad, and just the fluctuation of quality, this definitely isn't a therapy session at all.
Yeah. I think it was you who came up with the funky idea. We have like a bunch of topics. We have at least 6. So... do we start with the topics in the release order of Star Wars? We do 4, 5, 6,
yeah,
1, 2, 3?
I think instead of doing the first topic we had planned, we just skipped to 4, then 5, then 6. We'll go back and do 1, 2, and 3, and then we'll sell the rights to this to somebody else, and they can just handle the rest.
Sell the rights, which is basically free, though.
Yeah, I think maybe we just give a little background on like where this kind of started, where we came up with the idea to do this.
Yeah. Well, I think it was you who had the original idea, right? I think so.
Maybe.
We both work at a restaurant.
Yeah, a fast food chicken restaurant that rhymes with Rick Chile.
Rick Chile. It is actually called Rick Chile. It's like an off-brand restaurant. It's actually pretty dang good.
Definitely not something else. But
so we work together. We've worked together for, you've been there a long time. I've only been there a few years. And
thanks, you just call me old.
Well, you are older than me.
A little bit.
But so we there was just one day that we found out that we both watched Star Wars and love it.
Yeah.
Totally not being sarcastic for the last few years since the rights went to Disney. But so I knew Star Wars because I was kind of introduced to it when I was young. My dad actually showed me, he showed me episode 4. I think we watched it in release order 4, 5, and 6. And then I watched 1, 2, and 3. I didn't watch the sequel trilogy until for a while. It came out, my dad and brother went to see it, but I stayed home and I didn't watch that stuff until a couple years after it all came out.
And I think I should preface and say this is the topic of this episode.
Yeah.
Just kind of an introduction both to who we are and how we met and how this idea came about, but we also just wanted to go in and just say, well, how did we get to even know Star Wars? How were we introduced to it? And where did that love come from? But so you said your dad introduced it to you.
Basically, yeah.
Okay. And you watched it in release order and not in chronological order?
As far as I remember, yeah. And it is what it is. That's how he watched it when he was my age.
So tell me, what memories do you have of watching those movies? Do you remember a lot? Do you remember a little bit? Even if it's just a feeling. So
I remember the immersiveness in the movies because George Lucas did an amazing job in scripting and then basically culminating these movies together as we see them now. And in my case, I love warships.
Right.
I used to think that I was a trained kid. I think that big machines are just cool. So then watching these giant Star Destroyers and then seeing the Death Star and the Executor Star Destroyer and just how big they are and watching them blow each other up, I think that's just cool.
Oh, yeah. It's for sure cool.
So then what about you? Because I think you've probably been in Star Wars a lot long, or you've known about Star Wars a lot longer than I have.
Right. So my dad was a big Star Wars fan like yours. He saw it. He saw the original Star Wars in 77
Mm-hmm.
and watched all the movies. And so when I was little, of course, he wanted to get me to watch it with him. And he was, he'd go over to his buddy's house who he watched Star Wars with, and he'd be like, Spencer, you want to come watch Star Wars? And I was probably 5 or 6 or something like that. And I'd be like, no, I don't really care for that. I don't really care. Well, finally, I'm pretty sure he just sat me down and just said, all right, we're going to watch Star Wars. And I said, okay. And we're not even probably 5 minutes in, and like, I was hooked. And I remember some things. So like, one funny story that I do remember is that I didn't know what an empire was. And so my dad had explained to me that the bad guy was called the Emperor. And for some reason, since he probably told me that Vader was his right-hand man, I just assumed like Empire was a title for like, an assistant. So I'm like, okay, so if there's an emperor, does that make Darth Vader the Empire? And he's like, no, they're all the Empire. Darth Vader doesn't get a title. I'm like, oh, okay.
Gosh. Because you hadn't taken like you're 5 or 6 years old. You're in like kindergarten or first grade.
I think it was actually 7 at this point.
You're 7? Okay, so you're closer to like second grade age.
Yeah.
Have you taken like a world history class yet? I mean, there's in the old education system.
Kid, so I mean.
Yeah. I mean, when we were we've both graduated at this point, and like when we were in elementary school, the education was different.
Sure.
Even by like 10 years.
Sure.
But like,
yeah, I don't.
That you're kind of, you kind of just don't know what you're talking about with that.
No, and
so
then
it makes sense. It's really funny.
But and then I remember watching Empire in, weirdly enough, a cabin in Tennessee, because we went up there.
The
for
Empire
a trip.
Strikes Back?
Yeah, Empire Strikes Back. We watched it in a cabin in Tennessee. It had like a theater room. It was sick. I don't remember watching Jedi, weirdly enough, because that's, spoiler alert, that one's my favorite. And then the prequels, I actually didn't watch episode 1. That was the last of the original 6 that I watched. I watched 2 and 3, but I didn't watch 1. It's because we didn't have it on DVD. For any kids listening, if you don't know what a DVD is, go ask your parents.
Yeah, but, you should know what that is.
So I never watched it, but I knew it happened because I played Lego Star Wars. So, I was kind of already spoiled. And then I eventually watched it, and I was like, yeah, this is cool. But that was kind of my journey to the original 6. So I was hooked. I mean, like you said, just the world building that Lucas crafted just goes beyond imagination.
I mean,
this was somebody who clearly had a very specific reason, or I don't know what I'm trying to say, vision for what he wanted.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that definitely stands out the most.
Yeah.
You even go into A New Hope, or Star Wars, whatever you want to call it. There's literally a line about the Clone Wars. Obi-Wan mentions it, but that's not something that's going to come up for 20 years.
Yeah.
So I just think that's really cool.
Because also, like, we have, I mean, nowadays you have, I could pull up Disney Plus on my computer right now and look at how many Star Wars shows there are. Because, like, I mean, okay, so here's the debate. The Clone Wars from 2003, the, like, 2D animation.
Right.
Or the one that started in 2008, which has now 7 seasons, is one of, like, the most loved series in Star Wars.
I think that is definitely a debate, and maybe we could even go in further into it in a later episode. But
have you watched it?
Oh yeah, I've watched it.
The 2003?
Yeah,
I haven't.
It's good.
Okay,
it's very good.
I've seen clips. I'm like, what do I do?
Yeah, and growing up, I mean, Star Wars was kind of in what I would consider to be its prime when we were growing up in like the 2000s.
Yeah.
I mean, you had books, you had video games. I mean, there's so many Star Wars video games out.
Yeah.
You did have both Clone Wars shows, which were riding off of the hype of the prequels.
Yeah. Because that's between episodes 2 and 3.
Right.
And you can see when, like, if you were to watch, I mean, you and I both are I think we're both in the position of we watched the movies,
Right.
and then we went back and saw the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
So in that case, you see the change from episode 2 to episode 3, and you're like, there's so much that has happened. What the heck is going on here? Because episode 3, I mean, and you mentioned that episode 6 may or may not be your like favorite. Is that your favorite of all the original 6, or of like all Star Wars, or just the original trilogy? Like, where are you riding there?
Well, I think if I were to answer that, that might spoil a future ranking that we could do, but
I see.
It might be. It might be. I'll say that. Yeah. But I see where you're going with Revenge of the Sith.
Well, so here's the thing. Revenge of the Sith, I don't think Revenge of the Sith is my absolute favorite movie. Mm-hmm. I actually have some friends also that work with us, and they had never seen Star Wars, and they were trying to get into it, and they asked me about it. And so for like almost every Sunday for about 3 months, we watched more than just the movies, but we watched all 9 movies, including Rogue One.
Okay.
We didn't do Solo.
Okay.
Because like it's kind of irrelevant. It depends on your perspective on it.
I mean, it has its moments.
It has its moments. So Solo we skipped over, but we did like 1, 2, 3, Rogue One, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We also watched a little bit of The Mandalorian.
Okay.
They were told that they needed it. I don't totally agree with that, because I mean, for those of you who have not seen it, I won't try and spoil anything. I think that some of the stuff that comes up in The Mandalorian in like season 2 and 3 is kind of useful, but like by how much is the question. But
it's an expanding thing.
Yeah, it was basically what happened with the Clone Wars and us in the prequel trilogy. It's like you watch all the movies, but then you watch these series and you get some extra knowledge and you make those connections. And like there's hundreds of Star Wars channels out there that will make these connections and be like, hey, did you ever notice this?
Right.
Now that we've got this. And it's like, oh, hello. I totally lost where I was going with that.
Well, you were just talking about, I think, just getting into Star Wars.
Yeah, and like you can watch them in release order. I swear, I really think I saw this one time. I think that Yoda was in charge of the release for Star Wars.
Yeah.
So, that's what I was going for. Total rabbit trail. I was going on to like episode 3. I don't think is the best Star Wars movie, but I think it has the best introduction into a movie, because like the 2 starfighters and then the whole Battle of Coruscant.
Oh my gosh, it's
like that's a masterpiece to make that. I was very impressed, and I'm just like, I could watch that scene on loop for hours.
But that goes back to what you said about one thing that you got hooked on was ships and giant battleships.
Yeah, and if you guys haven't seen episode 3 and this scene that I'm talking about, go pause this podcast. I want you to go and watch it now, and then come back and you'll understand what the heck we're talking about.
And to follow up with that, you're listening to a Star Wars podcast and you haven't seen episode 3? Weird, but okay, we'll allow it.
Wait, I didn't even put that together. Oh, shoot. Okay, you're not going to get anything. Are they going to get anything?
I don't know. Maybe they just happened upon it and they're like, oh, what is this?
Yeah.
But
there's also one thing I realized that we haven't really talked about, and that is the sequel trilogy. Which, I'll be honest, like, I know everyone out there has their thoughts. I didn't think it was complete garbage, like some people. I think that some people are... I do think that some people take it a little far, and like...
And let's preface this by saying, everyone's allowed to have their own opinion about it.
Yeah.
Like, if
We're going to disagree on this a lot.
Yeah. But, like, if you like, you know, if you like something, like it. And we're not going to tell you not to like it. You know, enjoy it. I'm glad you do. And there might be something that we don't like, but that's okay. You know? And the key thing is just to be respectful.
Yeah.
And that, you know, to make sure that we're all being, you know, kind and courteous to each other. But getting back to it, yeah, and you said earlier that you didn't actually watch those movies when they were in the theater.
No, I feel like I watched episode 9.
Okay.
When I watched or in theaters. I think it's the other 2 that I didn't, and I watched them elsewhere because at that I can't remember if at that point what happened was we switched to Verizon for our phone carrier.
Okay.
And in that process, they gave us a free year of Disney Plus.
Oh, okay.
And so that's where I was like, oh, hello, there's this. This is awesome. And then we went back, and then we went to, and we were like, okay, the kids are using this, like, this was my parents. They were saying, like, okay, they use this a lot. I think we can just keep this. Because, I mean, I used to watch, like, completely off of Star Wars, I used to watch the Disney Channel as a kid every, like, Saturday morning at 8 a.m. I would come downstairs in our old house, and I would look, and my mom is sitting in the chair with my brother, and they're just watching, like, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse or something.
Right.
So we used to have it and watch this, like, Disney stuff, and then we had to get rid of it because,
yeah.
Because putting a television above a fireplace is a sin.
Ah.
Yeah, no, you don't do that.
So that was how you got introduced into the sequel trilogy.
Yeah, so I just had Disney Plus, and I mean, like, before I learned all this stuff, I'll preface this, before I learned about, like, in-depth Star Wars stuff, some of the lore, I mean, you read all the comics.
Yeah.
You recently bought some comics again, didn't you?
Maybe.
I don't have any comics. I haven't read any of them before.
Okay.
But, like, I learned stuff by watching other videos. I'm a total Gen Z kid. I can't say kid anymore. And it's funny just because I totally lost where I was going with this.
Just talking about your introduction to the sequel trilogy was a lot different, and that was kind of how you picked up on it.
It was before I learned any of the lore stuff, because before I realized that, like, many people don't like it, it was Star Wars. And I've heard other people say this before, that's like, I don't watch Star Wars because I'm in-depth on the lore and because I want it this way.
Right.
I'm in Star Wars because I love the immersive experience that you're watching this show, and it's really flippin' cool.
Sure, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I mean, I think that's where people have to be careful, and that's where a lot of the controversy comes in, is that, you know, it's okay to, once again, it's okay to like something. Mm-hmm. And if that's what you love about it, and, you know, you're okay with, you know, not looking into some lower things or whatever, go ahead.
Yeah.
My introduction to the sequels was different,
mm-hmm.
because I was excited about them when they were coming out.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that, you know, the theaters were pretty much all sold out when Force Awakens came out. And I had some friends who I was going to meet for dinner the night of its premiere.
Which one?
Force Awakens, Episode 7.
Okay.
And we met them. It was a restaurant right next to the movie theater. So I'm watching all of these people going to see Star Wars. And, of course, I'm jealous, because I was still a fan. I watched the trailers. I thought it was so cool.
Yeah.
And then my friends come up, and they're like, we're going to go see Star Wars. And I'm like, you jerks. You come all the way to eat dinner, and then you're telling me you're going to go see Star Wars without me? They're like, no, we got you a ticket, dummy. I'm like, oh, awesome. And so
that's really funny.
It's really, and it still is, one of the craziest theater experiences for me,
mm-hmm.
because they literally corralled us like cattle. Because the theater, because, like, they had so many different theaters that were playing, you know, even though you got your ticket, That did
Yeah.
not mean you necessarily were getting in that theater. They basically, as soon as the theater opened up, they shoved as much people they could in there and then waited for the next one to come up. So it was not even a matter of where, what theater you go to. They were just trying to push people in.
So did they even check that you had a ticket?
Yeah, they checked if you had a ticket, and then they just put you in a corral. And then whatever theater was available, we put as many people in there as we can.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, it was fun.
The last time I had like a really crazy theater experience was Avengers Endgame.
That was a fun theater experience.
I have not watched a movie in a theater since then.
Wow.
I know I'm going to spark a lot of hate right now. I really don't like movie theaters.
Really?
Like,
Nothing wrong with that.
I mean, it's nothing wrong with them necessarily, but it's like if I already have access to a subscription like Disney Plus, when all those kinds of movies, all the Marvel movie, like the last few Marvel movies, whenever they come out, if they come out in theaters, I just wait until they come on Disney Plus like 2 months later, and it's like,
sure,
okay, I might have some spoilers, but
yeah, I mean, if you don't care for spoilers, then there's nothing wrong with that.
I mean, I care a little. I mean, everyone should care a little, because if you don't care a little, then you have a problem.
Right.
You're basically watching half the movie before you watch the movie.
But then I watched the other two in theaters. Force Awakens, I remember I really liked it when I saw it. Yeah. And I still think it's a great movie. I think it's a good movie. I think that it like you said, not all the sequel trilogy, you have people say it's complete garbage, or you have people say it's perfect. First off, nothing's perfect.
Yeah.
Everything has flaws in it. And second off, just because it's flawed does not mean it's terrible. And there are good things to be found in those movies. And then, but I do remember, and once again, I don't want to get into this completely right now because I do believe this is a topic for another day.
Yeah.
But I do remember walking into The Last Jedi feeling like something about that was off.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that at some point because it's a scary topic and it's very heated. So,
Mm-hmm.
But I do remember thinking, I don't know. There's something about this.
Yeah, I do think that for what, like I know, like, the actors who did this, I'm going to preface this. I'm not an actor person. I'm not a music person. Like, I mean, I listen to stuff. I know some actors, but I don't know, everything that most people do. I kind of live myself under a rock a bit more. Okay. So like some of the sequel actors, Isaac.
So there's Oscar Isaac,
John Daisy Boyega. Ridley, John Boyega, Adam Driver.
Yes, Adam Driver.
Carrie Fisher, of course, like
Mark Hamill and Harrison.
Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, like those three are like OGs, so I loved it. But like some of the new sequel actors, I thought for what they were given, they did a great job.
Yeah. And
because like acting is hard work.
Oh yeah.
I've acted before, and granted, when my school did like theater programs, I always did the tech stuff because I really, really hate acting, because it's also, and that was one thing that happened. My senior class did a show, and they were all complaining to me like, it's so much work, it's so hard. I'm like, so do you know how long they spend making I mean, I don't know how long they spend making movies, but it's a long, like they spend months, like close to a year probably on some movies. It's like,
to make a full movie, it usually takes at least a year, and that includes the writing, the shooting, the post. Yeah. I mean,
and like these actors have to put in so much work for this. Like, people don't give them credit enough. I know there was the whole strike that happened.
Well, that was just recent. That didn't affect these movies.
Yeah, that didn't affect these movies, but like, people don't always give them enough credit. It's like there's a lot that has to go into that. Right. So for that, like, bravo.
Yeah, and I think this just also kind of, without giving our full thoughts, this is just a good way to introduce the fact that we're not here to just clown on everything Disney. Mm-hmm. That's not what this is.
Yeah.
And you might love Disney Star Wars, and if you love Disney Star Wars, that's great. If you don't like it, I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong for not liking it. I mean, there are some people, it's up to the viewer.
You need a logical conversation. If you don't have that, like, you're both just idiots.
Right. And if you can't have a reasonable and respectful conversation about it, then maybe you just shouldn't have a conversation. I'm not saying you shouldn't have that belief.
Mm-hmm.
But just, I think if you're just going to resort to yelling at each other and calling each other names, then what ground are you making?
Yeah.
And, we'll get into the sequel trilogy at some point. We'll talk about the fact that, like everything, it has problems.
Mm-hmm.
The original trilogy has problems.
Yeah.
I mean, the prequel trilogy has problems. We can go through the whole list of Star Wars content and we can point out.
Like every little blasted thing, and we can...
But we do that till we're blue in the face.
Yeah.
But we can also talk about the good.
Mm-hmm.
And there is good things to be found in those movies.
I mean, a lot of people just watch it for the enjoyment. Like you see all the the groups of people you see all the groups of people that are like all about are all like they're 100% into it and they're crazy about it. But that's because that's the people that are most vocal. And that is one thing that's kind of something I see in society. It's like, okay, just because those people are the most vocal doesn't mean that's actually what's happening. Because there's probably, I would bet money that there's probably thousands and thousands, if not like millions and millions of people who see all of this controversy going on and are just like, I don't care. Yeah. I'm just watching Star Wars because it's entertainment. My dad has a mini monitor above his desk that he uses as a television. He'll just put on like old shows and just watch them while he's working. There's people that just do that to Star Wars, and it's like, that's your choice. But I'm not upset. You're watching Star Wars. I'm glad you enjoy it. It's entertainment for you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and just, I think that's the main thing that I think we want to get across. And this is the introduction episode, and
we've gone so more in depth than we probably should have.
Yes, probably. And we've touched on a lot of things that, we could probably talk about in more detail later. But just enjoy what you want to enjoy.
Yeah.
And don't let us tell you different.
Yeah.
If we get to a point where we talk about something that we don't like, if we say that, oh, well, I didn't like this movie, or I think this movie is the best movie ever made, don't take our word for it. Go watch it for yourself.
Yeah, if you haven't already.
Yeah, if you haven't already. And if you love it, and even if it's something that you love that we said we didn't like, don't think that you're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has different standards. I mean, we're human. We're not all the same.
Yeah.
We're not all droids, I guess, is what we could say. But I guess even droids are different in Star Wars, so, I guess that wasn't a really good analogy.
It was a great analogy for the Phantom Menace.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I'm going to quote the Clone Wars. He's one of those older units. Not us. We're independent thinkers.
That's right.
Immediately gets shot.
I forgot about that scene.
Oh, it's great.
I'm actually watching that show with my cousin. He's never seen it before.
Well, because that was season 1, episode... I think that's the last... No, that was the second to last episode, because that was the third section of the Ryloth arc.
I will take your word for it.
Sorry, I have watched the Clone Wars. I'll bring Clone Wars up on my side monitor. I'll just be watching it while I'm working on something. I'll be 3D modeling Lord knows what. And I'm listening to this. Right. And so I've probably watched the entire series minus like a few episodes because some of the episodes are just bad.
Yeah.
I've watched a few of the episodes like 10, 20 times. I've watched the entire series over like 3 or 4 times, which is ludicrous, and I have wasted so much of my life on it. But why the heck do you think I'm doing a Star Wars podcast with a Star Wars friend?
Exactly. We'll get to the end of our life, and maybe after we pass on, we get to see, oh, you put X amount of time into this, and you put X amount of time into that.
Oh, that would be so cool.
And we're just going to see how much time we put into Star Wars, and we're going to be like, oh, boy.
Yeah. And that'll be weird.
Yeah.
So I guess like, why don't we end today? I know it might be a little shorter than what we normally do. Let's end today with some of what we're going to do and like some ideas we have for what we're going to talk about.
Sure.
One of them is definitely going to be we're going to rank all the movies.
Oh yeah, that's gotta happen.
I think one of them, I would love to do character breakdowns.
Okay.
And that was something we hadn't talked about before because like it just didn't come across us.
Okay.
I think that it would be awesome if we could do character breakdowns on some of like the really cool people. Like I know you're reading the Thrawn comics right now.
I've read the Thrawn. I'm currently also reading the Thrawn books, and then also the comics.
Yeah, so like Thrawn would be a great character to break down because I only know him from the stuff that's in that's canon, not stuff that's lore. I know I'm so behind on this, but like even just seeing him. Okay, so the Ahsoka show that came out like what was that, mid last year?
Yeah,
or no,
it was like August.
It was like August of last year. Seeing Thrawn, I actually was ready to wet my pants. I was so happy to see him. It was we're gonna rate this stuff, so I'm not gonna go too in depth now, but like that introduction was so good. The introduction in Rebels season 3 episode 1.
Yeah.
How Thrawn comes in and the introduction he has is like, this character is gonna do some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
What's some ideas you've got?
So, I thought, we're going to do the rankings, and we've already alluded to it, but, part of it, I think we could do, like, a discussion about the sequel trilogy, what it got right, what it got wrong, and, kind of give our overall thoughts on it, because apparently that's a pretty hot topic. And that will also come up, I guess, in the rankings as well.
Yeah. What if we did ranking... What if we do ranking for all 3 trilogies?
Yeah, I
not
think,
as a whole.
Yeah,
but like,
and I figure we would do like we can rank the movies, and I think that will kind of give our overall. And we can. I like that idea actually. What if we rank the movies, but then do a retrospective on the trilogy as a whole?
Yeah,
how it holds up. Because I do believe you can also view these as independent films.
Yeah.
Another thing I thought that could be fun is, and yeah, I do look into some of the background lore, is just let's do one where we just find like what are the kookiest looking aliens, kookiest looking droids, or the coolest looking ships, and just give your top 5.
If we do ships, we may have to do like a separate one for like regular ships, and then another one.
I would rank ships. Okay.
I would rank capital ships because, I mean, I'm gonna go through in my head real quick. You've got they've got the Old Republic and the Old Empire. And then you get into like the Republic. We've got like the Venators and the CIS fleet. You've got the Imperial Navy. You've got the Rebel fleet. The Rebel and Resistance fleet from the original and sequel trilogy are kind of the same. They're got very similar. The First Order, Final Order.
Then you can even go into some legend stuff, and there's some crazy looking.
The Yuuzhan Vong's got some. The shoot. I want to say Raktur, but that's not right. It was like a really old race of dark side force users who...
Rakatan.
The Rakatan, yeah. Because they created, honestly, what is, in my humble opinion, the best super weapon. The Starforge.
Yes.
That thing... I almost want to 3D print a model of it. It's that would be so cool.
That'd be cool. So that's definitely something we can look into.
So we can do we can do a ship... Jeez, we could do like Navy, we could do Navy / fleet review.
Yes.
And ranking.
And then we'll have some other things mixed in here and there. Some just in-depth look into certain things about Star Wars, and also reviews. I mean,
Yeah.
Star Wars is a active, living brand right now.
And that's honestly, I'm happy for that, because while I have my thoughts on stuff, I love just watching it for the enjoyment factor.
Sure. And there are some very interesting things going on right now.
Mm-hmm. I mean, at the time of recording this, we are about halfway through. We're just over halfway through The Acolyte.
Right.
I think there's 8 episodes, and we're not going to get into this today. But maybe we do series reviews, and we start we could even just go chronological order. So once The Acolyte's finished, we do that. Then we do the Clone Wars. There's then Rebels.
I think you also kind of mentioned, since you haven't watched Clone Wars, we would also have to end up doing that at some point.
Well, yeah. We'd have to do. We could do both Clone Wars, or we could do separate. I don't even know.
You gotta do
guys.
both.
There's
you gotta
so
do
much that we could talk about. So, all things go well, Lord willing, we will be continuing this podcast. So we're hoping that you guys will come along for the ride with us, enjoy it, and maybe there will be some. I think guest speakers would be a definite.
I would love to have some guests, and it could start off as just plain old friends that we have who also have something to say. But you never know, as time goes on. Maybe we can actually get somebody cool to show up. So, Mark Hamill, check your DMs. But,
please, that would be so awesome. Get Star Wars actors on here.
We'll see. But yeah, I think to wrap it up, we got some fun ideas in store, and your support would be greatly appreciated.
Amen, brother.
All right. You got anything left?
I don't. So, guys, thank you for listening. I hope you've made it to the end, and we will see you in the next episode. We aren't going to spoil what we're going to do, but...
Yep. Take care, everybody, and may the Force be with you.